What did you find out about your wife husband only after you got married? She's not a redhead. She managed to keep an amazing day job all while we were dating and engaged. Her roommates and friends were convinced she was a redhead too. Her hairdresser moved a few states over the same month we got married, and the truth came out, since apparently actually doing realistic red hair is something even most professionals suck at. My wife had always been a keen dancer, but her knees and hips were hurting, and the doctor said she had to stop dancing and should try swimming instead. So we joined a local pool and turn up for our first session. It's a small, quiet pool, and we were the only two people in the water. She challenged me to a race over a length. I agreed. She then suggested that I have half a length head start. I laughed, but thought, okay, what's the harm? Apostrophe. That girl beat me. Even though I had half a length head start. She just sailed past me and won easily. That's when she told me she used to compete nationally as a swimmer in high school. Although she's older now and probably not as physically fit, she still has great technique. Basically, she's half dolphin. By this point, we'd been married for 8 years. Her swimming prowess had never before been raised as a subject of conversation. I was impressed, but also a little worried. What else didn't I know? Any Nobel Prizes she'd forgotten to mention? Any Oscars that she just didn't find a good moment to tell me about? I found out the day that we returned from our honeymoon that my husband has a 50/50 chance of having Huntington's disease, a terrible degenerative neurological disease. He found out that his father has the condition 4 days before our wedding. This is the reason my wife and I decided never to spawn. My mother died of complications from Huntington's a couple years back, and I'm still afraid of what could lie ahead. She owned and knew how to use a compound bow. She's a yoga bookworm type. That she doesn't like corn. Dot. I'm from Iowa. Pretty sure I could get the marriage annulled. TL. DR. Learn CPR and keep your phone charged. He doesn't like drinking out of plastic glasses. Totally mundane. And yet, I never noticed. That she eats sugar cubes raw, not in tea or coffee. She'll buy boxes of them and eat them. It's not that it's unattractive. It's just really odd. A very long time ago, hotels and restaurants would serve their coffee or tea with sugar cubes that were individually wrapped in paper printed with the place's logo. My dad was stationed in Europe with my mom. Whenever they went out to eat at a new place, they would take a sugar cube as a souvenir. Anyway, when I was around 6, I found the dish and ate every goddamned one of them in one sitting. That the guy that arped me when I was 16 was his cousin. Found out when preparing the guest list for our wedding. He knew I had been arped. Way awkward conversation about why his cousin could not be invited to our wedding. Worst part was, the arsehole showed up at our open dance. Thankfully, my brother-in-law escorted him out before my husband saw him. That to my husband. Running out of cheese in our household is basically a national emergency. We lived together 4 years before cheddar levels became critical. Now I keep 2 pounds of Tillamook in the fridge at all times. She couldn't cook. My wife's cooking was so bad in the beginning that it became a good-natured joke among our friends. She was in on the joke. She loves to cook though, and because of years of practice, she's now a fabulous cook. She just didn't take messing things up too seriously and kept doing it. He can play guitar. Like, really well. Dated for 3 years before marrying and had 2 years of marriage before we were at a friend's house and he picked up the guitar, just started rocking out. I was absolutely gobsmacked. Cool surprise. He said he doesn't play anymore BC he realizes he'd gotten as good as he'd ever be. Quite a SI surprise. Anyway. That he was great with kids before we were married. Always playing with and seemed to love them. Talked of wanting kids. Even cried when our son was born. Our daughter followed 2 years later. Except he was never as interested with his kids as he was with other people's kids. We divorced when they were 6 and 8. Although always living within a couple miles. He has only seen them a handful of times in the last 21 years. Not at all in the last 10 years. We had an okay divorce. Not nasty. He just stopped all interest in them. Within about a month and a half after our wedding, he was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and bipolar II disorder. A lot of things started to make sense. And we were able to find the treatment regimen that works best for him. To enable him to truly be himself. They are terrible with finances. Just burns through money. That he misjudges way too many farts. My ex-husband. That he didn't know how to wipe his ass. I would find balled up underwear in the hamper before doing the laundry. And there were some serious stains in them. It made sense at that point that one of his ex-girlfriends had bought him toilet paper for Christmas one year. Something my wife only found out about me after we got married. The night she first slept over. I wet the bed. When it happened, I just thought, welp. That's a shame. I guess this is over. I had nothing to lose. So I figured I might as well do laundry and go back to sleep. I removed my side of the sheet. Put down a towel over the mattress. Rolled her onto the towel. Then removed the rest of the sheet. Then I got out a clean sheet and put it on her side. Rolled her onto it. And put it on the rest of the bed. She didn't question any of this. Just mumbled during the rolling. I put the dirty sheet in the washing machine and got back in bed and fell asleep. When we woke up, she didn't mention anything. I didn't tell her this had happened until our honeymoon and she found it hilarious. That's despite being the laid-back hippie type. He is surprisingly militant about which way the toilet paper roll faces. So I obviously am required, by sneaky, evil wife law, to intentionally swap it around. Just so I can hear him yellow. Come on. Every single time he goes to take her. He has a mouth made of asbestos. I actually call him asbestos mouth. He recently completed a spicy currywurst challenge here in Berlin. Where he ate it with a spice that was rated 777 Scoville units. He ate it without so much as a flinch. And even the guy who was serving us was like, is he human? After. My husband said he needed some ice cream because it was a bit spicy and that was it. He needs to be donated to science. He also has a high tolerance for anesthesia. Double dose. Wakes up like he's just had a nice nap. No disorientation or anything. Freak of nature. He has never listened to anything by the Rolling Stones intentionally. This is the man who has sold his art to the Rolling Stones too. Might I just add. He also doesn't know how to spell definitely. Which he admitted to me drunk one evening after we'd been married for 3 months. Very fun to hear him dramatically sob and go. There's something very important I need to tell you right now. Then proceed with that bombshell. Edit. Should confirm I meant he couldn't spell the word definitely. She is a pack rat hoarder. Get on top of that one quick. You can absolutely seize the mantle of house cleaner upper. And just dispose of that. If you face any pushback. It's time to have the talk. It's amazing what 20 years of accumulation can do to an otherwise nice house. Voice of experience. The insane temps he needs to keep the house at. 65? Nope. That's not cold enough. Then the fan gets turned on. 2. I basically sleep in a cocoon year round. Edit. 65 Fahrenheit, so about 18 Celsius for a lot of you. My husband used to keep the thermostat set at 55. 55. Finally. Over the period of a decade. I have gotten him acclimated to 70 degrees. It's that whole how do you boil a frog thing. She eats bugles with a fork and crushes chips to eat them with a spoon. It drives me nuts that if I'm fetching a bowl of salty snack foods, I have to add cutlery. When bugles first came out, my sister and I were staying at our friend's house. Their mom bought some bugles and it was the first time any of us had ever seen them. We thought it was cereal and ate them with milk. 0/10 would not recommend. He doesn't like to eat anything that is blue. I finally have something relatable Reddit. Maybe 3 months after I got married. We were over at my in-laws' house when I made a sarcastic comment pointed at my wife as a joke. Her father then proceeded to tell me I needed to be careful, she could end you with one kick. Strange, I thought, so I responded with, why a kick? I don't think she could reach me, haha. She is only 5 feet 2. He then proceeds to tell me and show video of my wife competing in taekwondo competitions. She was undefeated in her career from the ages of 8-16 and won a national championship. My wife is very embarrassed by this amazing talent for some reason. And I bricks that he was bisexual and had fetishes that I just could not accept. I tried my best to fulfill him, but him getting it by a dude while I watched was where I drew the line. We are divorced now, but for unrelated reasons. I thought I was the disorganized, messy one. I was not the disorganized. Groom told me about his addiction. You're a brave woman. My wife never puts the cereal back in the pantry. She's pretty good about keeping the place clean. Otherwise, in fact, I would be living in pure filth if I never got married. And I'm eternally grateful that she's impacted my life positively in that way. I don't know what it is about the goddamn cereal, though. It's her all-time favorite snack. So I find a box just sitting on the counter or the island every day. Goddamn it. Edit. Just realized I made it sound like I just sit around while my wife cleans like a maid. We actually have the household chores divided up pretty equally. That it wasn't us against the world, it was her against the world and I was in the world. Also, that I loved her. And she really liked the idea of me being in love with her. That my wife had a huge amount of debt. Medical bills, school loans, credit cards, etc. She refused to let her family pay for anything because she wanted to prove her independence. All that came due shortly after we were married. She leaves the tops off of seltzer bottles for too long. Or puts them back on too loosely. Always gets flat too fast. She constantly offends the gods of carbonation. I'm surprised she hasn't been smitten by them yet. My wife and I were together for 12.5 years and had 5 kids before getting married. So there wasn't much left. However, I found out earlier this year that she's never seen an episode of Full House. Lucky her. That he has an attraction to men that he never explored. Kind of related. Have been with my hubby for 13 years. And I still to this day have never seen his chin. Ever. He has always had a beard, lol. My wife claimed to be very level-headed and organized. Since we've been married I have found out that she is neither. That he likes to go sneak in the backyard at night and never uses the toilet. The next day, the dogs are really curious what big dog comes every night and leaves strange looking long logs in the grass. But why? That she had already fallen out of love with me and just did it to try to force our relationship to work since we had a kid and she was pregnant with our second. The second kid was planned and it was for the same reason as getting married apparently. That's a whole lot of ed up. I learned that my husband has severe sleep issues. He says random stuff in his sleep and will randomly sit up or punch the wall. He tends to be rude as heck when he is asleep too. Edit. I forgot to add. I once saw him try to pee in the dryer in his sleep. He wasn't drunk or just said he had to pee and got into position in front of the dryer. Ha. My girlfriend. On our first date. Sleep yelled that's a little passive aggressive. At me. I mean. It's true that I'm passive aggressive. But how the did she know already? She says awesomely weird in her sleep. Though. I've taken to writing it down to see if she can remember what it was in reference to. Last time it was about furry PRN of Rahul Esparza. She also snores and grinds her teeth like a rock tumbler. Which is less endearing. Though. That we weren't quite as aligned on fidelity as I had once thought. So your take on fidelity was no one other than your spouse, while your spouse's take was everyone in addition to my spouse? She has the same last name as me. I have a buddy who is dating a girl with the same exact first, middle and last name as his sister. I hadn't seen him in a long time and Facebook told me that he was in a relationship with Gene Doe Smith. I was like, that's some incestuous there bro. Alas. She's just a girl he met and the new city he moved to that just by pure coincidence happens to have the same exact name as his sister. Found out my ex-husband did not graduate high school. That he was a psychopath. Struggling with his own sexuality. And an abusive shat when the whole world didn't spin his way at his speed. 23 days until the final divorce hearing. That he is emotionally abusive. Has major anger problems. And has no respect for anything different from himself, especially me. We dated for 3 years. But were long distance for most of it. I don't know if he just did it well. Or honestly changed. There were none of the red flags you'd expect. I feel tricked. Country music. My husband loves it. Loves it. Never came up once in the 2 years we were together before we married. I like metal. Hard rock. Oldies. Punk. 80s. Alternative. Just about everything except rap. Jazz and most especially country. I hate it. The old stuff. The new stuff. Doesn't matter. Twang makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And he hid it from me. Intentionally. Maliciously. He tricked me into a marriage based on lies. Divorce him and take his dog and truck and gun. She doesn't like or give blowjobs. Must be rough for a guy with 69 in his username. That she was a conscientious cheating troll. Twins run heavily in her family. I found out after the ultrasound. My girls are beautiful though. 2. 5 years of marriage and 7 years together in total, and I keep finding out she is just as awesome as I imagined her the first time I saw her. This reminds me of 2 professors from my department who are married. They are in their 60s and said they still get butterflies when they accidentally run into one another on campus. They basically got diabetes from the sweetness. That she still laughs at the same Thai jokes I make after 15 years. And I think it's because she loves me still a lot. We went to the bank one day and I watched him sign a check. I can see the initials of the first name, but for the life of me, I can't read the last name. He told me that he signs his first name in English and his last name in Arabic. Good or bad? Either way. How sweet he is. He was an amazing man before we got married. But I learned how amazing he is during our marriage. He is a great husband. An amazing son. Brother. In-law. Etc. He cares about my parents and sister as much he cares about his family. And everyone loves him so much. I feel I am so lucky to have him. Also how much he loves sports. It is a good thing because I enjoy watching him. Watching sports. It is fun. I never knew how much alone time he needed. He got it naturally in our lifestyle before we were married. I didn't realize the extent to how much he desires to save money and how let down he feels during our tough months. Also didn't know exactly how easily he stresses before either. She spent an entire evening dealing with Facebook drama during our honeymoon in Venice. That he wakes up every morning by farting. So, I wake up every morning inhaling his fart. For the last 31 years. The first breath I drew each morning on waking has been a lungful of my husband's farts. I finally challenged him on his morning habits recently and now he jumps out of bed and goes to the bathroom to fart. Hallelujah. 10 years married and I only just found out he doesn't like the Goonies. He's a monster. Full stop. If that counselor is still around, try to contact him to let him know that. It's rare they get to see how their actions impact their students' lives like that. He's lazy. Selfish. Makes fun of me, thinking it's funny. And almost never listens to me. That my husband has dyslexia. You mean? He loves the Muppet Show. She is slow. Not smart slow. Getting things done slow. We are always late going places. She is taking one class and studies 30 hours a week. When she was taking 4 classes, she studied 30 hours a week. Whatever time is allotted, she uses it plus some. Some other traits tell me she has a limited innate sense of time. Tasks, such as cooking multiple items and having them get done around the same time, are difficult for her. Not married, but my girlfriend just noticed that when I enter a room I touch the ceiling. That his family is very wealthy. Mill let it slip during the rehearsal dinner that my soon-to-be husband was supposed to be taking medication for high blood pressure. I had never seen him take any sort of daily medication, let alone the fact that he had high blood pressure. IDK who I was more tired. I groom for not telling me and neglecting to take care of himself. Or for my Mill to bring that up during rehearsal dinner. That she prefers the 45 ACP running out of a high-end Ed Brown Cobra over her Glock 19. We have been together for 10 years. Have you introduced her to a device that can use a 90 kg counterweight to launch a projectile 300 meters? That she used to break into my home and drug me too. I found out because she recorded it every time she did it. I know this is illegal and crazy, but we are both diagnosed psychopaths. So I'm not entirely surprised. I've learned a lot of things I wish I had known beforehand though. Novel-worthy things. What? She didn't like exercising and watching what she ate nearly as much as she had pretended. He's a Republican. We rarely discussed politics back then, and when we did he always agreed with me. We run in a very liberal social circle and attend granola type events. He legit watches Fox News like it's real. He listens to Rush Limbaugh and similar talk radio hosts. He voted for Bush, Romney and Trump. Our discussions get pretty heated sometimes, but we respect each other's feelings and opinions. She poops. Sounds like you've got a defective model. They aren't supposed to do that. Nothing really. We got married after 5 years of being together, been together 9. And we lived together for the entire thing. We moved in really fast and meshed well. We only got married because he joined the Navy. It made things a lot easier before he shipped off to RTC. He had long hair and a beard before. So, I guess my first thought was, it can come off. Apostrophe. I had never seen him without his long hair or beard. He looked completely different. He has a mustache right now. It's really weirding me out. But he's on deployment, so it makes him happy. Deployment stash, he calls it. I'm an amateur acrobat and juggler, and my fiancé will probably never know. I've mentioned in conversation I can do flips on a trampoline and do the bars rings, and she said she could too. I think she just assumed I meant what kids do when they jump and play on a trampoline. I don't have a gym to go to around here, so can't show off just yet. I also do poi fire stuff and can ride a unicycle also while juggling. That he had barely seen any Tarantino movies. My ex-husband waited until we were married before deciding he didn't like country music. I mean, literally we were on our way back from our brief honeymoon and he wouldn't let me put the radio on my preferred station. And for the record, this was before the days of bro country bull. Worse than that, though. The dude picked his feet. Like, we got married and that night he sat down on the edge of the bed and started picking at his feet, pulling dead skin off and saying he'd always done that. Current husband didn't have any gross habits hidden away, but his family decided to keep the racism in the closet until the lunch we had with them a day or so after our wedding. Hubby isn't racist in the slightest, so I didn't suspect it of his family. But we sat down at the table and his sister started going on about how she lived in my part of Texas briefly, but she couldn't take all the Mexicans. I'm white, but like pretty much every other white person in South Texas, there are Mexicans in my extended family. So that went over real well.